Hey Trent, my man, it's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Elijah, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Beautiful, and thank you too so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate it. And you see, Trent, oftentimes I love to thank my guests for two things, just like I mentioned earlier, and I do this so often to the point where it has become an anthem for me. So, firstly, my man, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now, right here, because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. Just like I mentioned earlier, some months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, just like I mentioned earlier. And you see, the leaves were all dry, it wasn't attractive at all, so I just walked past it and I went my way. But just recently, Trent, I was on that same road, and this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches, and not just mangoes, my man. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely moment that day for me. I was so excited. And here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Trent that you are today, that alone has made it really impossible for me to say no to you. And getting to read a little bit about you, the wondrous stuff that you're doing, it's amazing. How you are offering your solutions, your philosophies, your insight, these stuffs are beautiful. So thank you so very much for investing in yourself. And secondly, thank you very much for being here. I truly appreciate you, my man. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. Thrilled to be here and happy to chat about it.
Beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I'm quite excited to have Trent on the show today for, let's say, two reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. Trent, I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, Trent, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very, very important to me and even to the listeners. The second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Trent on the show is for the sake of the listeners. You see, Trent, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So these folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Trent, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Trent, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are just so curious. We want to know how Trent got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Trent, my man, over to you.
Thanks for that intro. I can't wait to get into it. Yeah, so my name is Trent Carter. I'm a board certified nurse practitioner, board certified addiction specialist. I'm the founder and owner of Renew Health, which is a system of outpatient clinics for addiction, substance abuse, mental health here in New Mexico. And so we're all about trying to change people's lives, giving life back. Take back life is one of our slogans. And I can't wait to get into it for any questions you have to educate the listeners. And let's rock and roll.
Beautiful. You see, you used one of my favorite words, helping lives, giving lives back, and that's amazing, and I love that. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to begin first with this personal question, all right? So, what was it like growing up in, is it Boyd, Texas? I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly.
You pronounced it perfectly. Boyd, Texas. It's a small Texas town. I graduated high school with 74 people, very much country. Not a whole lot going on. It was a fairly sleepy town. And so while I did graduate with some very intelligent other people, not many of us went off to college. A lot of folks either went straight into the workforce or they stuck around Boyd and, did farming, things like that after they graduated. And so to go on to college and then to continue on to get a master's degree or even doctorate level degree is actually pretty rare from Boyd, Texas.
Wow, I got that. So, what drew you to health and science at such a young age?
Great question. Man, I've always been fascinated with science, fascinated with the body, fascinated with anatomy. It's kind of, I guess, a nerdy kid, you could say. And so while I was outside building tree houses and playing sports like other young men, young boys, I was always real drawn to the science and trying to educate myself. And anytime I would find something like that I liked, I would just dive in. I would jump in with both feet and continue to try to learn more and more and more. And I would go down that rabbit hole of getting educated on the topic. And so I think that just naturally led for me to go into healthcare. So straight out of high school, I went into nursing. As well, I went to school for nursing, that is. And I was a trauma nurse, an ICU nurse for many years. And then I ended up going back to school to become a nurse practitioner, which is what I am now. And so now I've been a nurse practitioner for, I think I'm going on my 5th year at this point. And it's been incredible because of the changes that we have been able to make for these folks. And I'm sure we're going to get into that here in just a minute.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. So let's talk about your dad and your brother. How did your father and brother influence your entrepreneurial mindset?
Love that question. They're hustlers, man. They're go-getters. They're always wheeling and dealing and trying to find a way to turn an extra dollar, or if it's, my father being able to provide so that we could go on a trip whenever, we had a young family when my brother and I were children. I think that naturally just rolled down to my older brother. He's 6 years older than me, and he's always been a hustler, and they've been able to provide for their families. And so me being the youngest and looking up to that, it was very inspirational for me because I saw the work that it took, the dedication it took. And look, if you're going to lounge around and lay on the couch and take it easy that day, that's fine, but you're not going to be able to achieve or acquire these additional things that you may want. And so that's always been in my mindset because I grew up watching my father do it. And then as my brother got older and he was doing it, and now I'm the same way.
Amazing. I love that. And that's one of the advantages of having beautiful family. That's a great one. So, what inspired you to open your first recovery clinic in 2022?
So my wife and I moved to Roswell. No, I'm sorry. We moved to Ruidoso, New Mexico, but I was working in Roswell, New Mexico, which is about, we'll call it an hour and a half away from us. And I was doing house calls. And so I was working as a nurse practitioner, and I was going into the homes of these individuals that needed medical assistance. And so it was a lot of boots on the ground experience because I was going into neighborhoods and areas where I was seeing drug abuse happen. And so I got to looking around to see what resources there are. I was doing some research, and it's very limited. New Mexico as a whole is limited, but in this particular area, there just were very, very limited resources. So fast forward a couple months, and I decided to take that weight on, and we opened Renew Health, and to provide the resource for these folks where there was nothing before.
That's so thoughtful of you, and it's amazing what you're doing. But I believe there is something that is very inevitable, which is challenges. So, can you talk to us about some of the challenges you faced while, trying to open multiple clinics in just 2 years?
You're always going to face challenges. It doesn't matter what you do, right? And so whether you're someone that's struggling from substance abuse and addiction, there's going to be challenges when trying to seek care. And it is, like climbing a mountain. It is an uphill battle at first, but there's help available and it's very doable. I've got thousands of patients that can attest to that. Or on the business side of things. So anytime you're going to go and start a business on your own, there's going to be an immense amount of challenges and work and sleepless nights and stress and everything that comes along with that. And so while I did have a father and a brother that were hustlers and they were constantly wheeling and dealing, they didn't have a lot of business experience as far as being an entrepreneur and opening something like this, especially in healthcare, right? I'm the first member of my family to ever go the healthcare route. And so to open a clinic, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a guide. I didn't have a playbook to follow. And so there was a lot of figure it out, right? And the reason I bring this up is because no matter what it is you're trying to do in life, I don't care if you're just trying to get started at the gym, right? There's so much information that's out there, no matter what you want to do. Lean on that. There are resources out there. There's people that want to help. There's information that's available, and you have to be active in trying to seek that. And I think that it would blow your mind with no matter what it is you're trying to do or wanting to do, how many resources are available out there for that.
Very true. That's so true. And I got that. So, what are some common limits do you see people struggle with?
So, substance abuse is kind of our bread and butter. We see a lot of opioids, stimulants, and alcohol. And so opioids are going to be things like fentanyl, right? It's all through the news. You see it everywhere. Heroin, prescription pain pills. Your stimulants would be things like methamphetamine, cocaine, and then, of course, the alcohol. And it's so prevalent. It's prevalent everywhere, but especially here in the United States, New Mexico ranks amongst the highest, meaning we have the worst rates. And so our abuse and our overdose is really, really high. And then oftentimes it's accompanied with mental health. And so they're struggling with anxiety, depression. They may have some sort of trauma. And that's our approach at Renew Health, where we do address the whole patient and not just one thing. I try to address all of it. And that way, if you can get it in control, then the chance at long-term success, which would be abstinence or being sober, is much higher.
Got that. So, when did addiction care become a passion for you? Just curious.
Great question. So I was exposed to it while I was in school for nurse practitioner. And of course, as a nurse, I would still see patients that come in that are obviously struggling. But my role as a nurse, an ICU nurse at that point in time, was to stabilize someone when they had something traumatic that happened, let's say a car wreck. And then once we get them stable, they kind of move on. And so at that point in time, I never really addressed the addiction, right? Because that's not what my role was. And then I went back to school for nurse practitioner. And on one of my rotations, I was working under a doctor that did do some addiction treatment. Not a whole lot, but he did have some patients that he was treating. And I don't have a great explanation as to why. I was just naturally attracted to that. It's to see the change that someone can make so quickly. It's truly life changing. I mean, almost overnight, in a matter of days, it can happen. To see how appreciative and thankful they are, and the way it made me feel was just incredible. And so while I had some exposure to it in school, I didn't know that it's what I was going to end up doing. Once I graduated school, I didn't intend on going to open a clinic specifically for addiction treatment. But here we are. So life has a funny way of leading you down a path.
That's so true. Okay, so you do have a podcast. What inspired you to start a podcast?
To try to get the word out. So on the podcast Beyond Limits, we'll talk about several different things, but one of them is I'm an addiction recovery advocate, man. I am always out there trying to spread the word, trying to destigmatize the stigma, the stereotype that's often associated with addiction and substance abuse is just terrible. And they're people just like you and me and your listeners. And so I think if we can educate and bring more awareness, then all of a sudden there's not only hope, but there's a true path to make a change in someone's life. And as a society as whole, I think that we have so many people that are struggling that maybe are even afraid to seek the help because of the stereotype and the stigma that's associated with it. So that's one of the things. Also, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a business owner, multiple businesses actually. And so I like to talk on that as well. As well as, look, as an individual, just advancement, self-advancement, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it may be. I like to touch on all those topics.
Beautiful. I tell you, I love what you're doing and the impact your work is having. This stuff's so amazing because the content, the topic you're focusing on is actually a very important one. A lot of people are suffering from addiction, and many of them do not even know how to go about it or what to do. Many folks already believe that, okay, this stuff now is permanent. I ain't never going to stop doing this stuff. So getting to listen to our conversation now, there is this hope and this how do I put it? This practical wisdom that you're sharing. I love it. So finally, I have one more question to go. All right. So how can mindset shape recovery and success? Can you talk to us about
My
that?
gosh. Yes, it's so important. I think, well, look, the second you get out of bed, your mindset is going to help shape whether or not you have a good or bad day, right? And so if you have a positive outlook and you're appreciative to the things that you have, I think that right there is going to set your day up for success in general, no matter what's thrown at you that day. Because let's be honest, sometimes you have a bad day or a rough day or a hard day, as opposed to other times days are just easier, right? So I think first and foremost, mindset's going to be important there. But if you want to relate it specifically to, again, recovery, addiction, substance abuse, you've got to have the mindset of, I want to make a change for me. Because if you're not doing it for yourself, if you're doing it for someone else, or because you're feeling pressured by a spouse or a loved one or the courts even, you can still be successful. Don't get me wrong. You can still have a ton of success. But if you don't get that intrinsic motivation, that internal motivation, it's just not going to be as successful. And what's amazing is if an individual that's struggling, that feels like they're at rock bottom or close to it, can take that first step towards recovery. Look, it's not going to be easy, but you take the first step and all of a sudden it's not so overwhelming. And then if you can take that next step, maybe a little bit of positivity comes out of it because you do see some progress, or you've made a connection with someone new that can be part of the support system, or shoot, now you're not detoxing or overdosing on fentanyl anymore, right? All of a sudden, that's a very positive thing, and it's easier to take the next step. And so what happens? Our mindset starts to change there. And so it just gets easier to continue on and on and on in the right direction. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be ups and downs, that there won't be some days that are more difficult than others. But overall, the progress, the trend, the progression there can get easier.
Get easier. I got that. Beautiful. So to bring this to an end, Trent, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about everything we've discussed so far, or they felt inspired, they would love to ask you questions, join your programs, like is it the recovery tool belt? I don't know.
Yes,
If
sir.
I mentioned that
Yeah,
correctly. Yeah. So how
you
can that be
did.
possible?
I'll touch on that. So I want to leave the audience with, look, just be active. And what I mean by that is, and whatever it is you want to do, it's not going to come to you. It's just not. And so whether you're wanting to go start your own business, you got to be active. You got to put yourself out there. Like we touched on earlier, there's resources. So actively try to seek those resources for information. But even at that, okay, information is only information. It doesn't do anything unless you put it to use, unless you actively take action, you take that next step. Same for recovery. Look, there's so many resources available, whether it's myself, my company, Renew Health. Even if we're not near you, there's thousands of educated medical providers out there that want to help. And so all you have to do is start being active in your recovery. Start looking around. Hop on Google, right? There's someone near you that can help. And so you mentioned the Recovery Tool Belt. That's a book of mine that's going to be coming out very soon. It'll be out next month. It'll be everywhere. Books.com, Amazon. I'm going to record it as well. It'll be on Audible. So anywhere you look to purchase or to listen to a book, it'll be available. But also for more information, you could look at my personal website. It's thetrentcarter.com. That's thetrentcarter.com. And also our website, renewhealth.com. There is a ton of information on there. So for someone that has questions or that's struggling, even if you're not near me and we can't help you, there's still a lot of valuable information on there on how to get someone started. But all of that's also in the book, The Recovery Tool Belt, which will be out next month.
Beautiful, and I can't wait for that to get published. So that's going to be the end of the show, my man. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this beautiful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.